So when you saw what happened over the weekend, what were your initial thoughts?
Oh boy. A lot of surprise that Israel was being penetrated like this by Hamas. That they're supposed to have one of the best militaries, one of the best intelligence forces in the world, and yet that Hamas was able to get this far inside of Israel and do this much killing was a real surprise.
So as someone who watches international affairs and things like that, would you say that this is an escalation from what we've seen in the past as far
It's
as
a
Hamas?
huge escalation, yes. I mean, Hamas was in the in the Gaza Strip was kind of had been downgraded of late. There were other issues that Israelis were focused on. Wasn't quite so much on Hamas in the West Bank, so this was a bit of a surprise. The Hamas had been suggesting folks up in the West Bank should do a little bit of uprising. There have been some issues up there. There are other groups of Palestinians in Gaza, such as Islamic Jihad, who the U.S. says is also a terrorist organization, that were causing some issues. But Hamas had been kind of not being paid a lot of close attention, it appears. But somehow they managed to organize this. And Israel has quite a bit in the way of intelligence gathering capabilities and the iron wall that they put up around Gaza, not quite an iron wall, but fencing with lots of electronic gear, radars, other types of sensors to detect movement and things like this, but that didn't work. And they were able to come through, it looks like using, bulldozers to push through the wall and then come through, and using paragliders and things because more lower tech, not kind of high tech equipment to come through. And so it was quite the surprise.
What is the risk of global uncertainty connected to gas prices?
So on that, if this were to spread to a wider regional conflict, let's say Hezbollah gets more involved than they are already, which is firing some rockets in from up in Lebanon, but it's not become a real offensive up in the northern part of Israel. Iran is not getting too involved directly at the moment. Reports that they helped to train and arm Hamas. Also some reports that they helped organize this operation, although it's not been confirmed by U.S. intelligence, at least that they've announced. But if it gets to be that broader war, then gas prices, yes, are going to be impacted. I was surprised that we hadn't already seen an increase. Driving down Wabash to come to campus yesterday and today, it's still not bad of late, right? 329, 330s. So that we've not seen a spike. But if it gets to be a broader conflict, where really we're looking at access to the oil flow through the Persian Gulf, et cetera, then we're going to see an impact on oil prices and therefore gas prices. Oil prices are on the high side at the moment anyways. And with the Ukraine conflict and all of the gas and oil issues that derived from that a year and a half ago, there is the easy ability, I think, for the global oil market and therefore gasoline prices to feel the effects. But at the moment, as long as it's kind of contained just to this one area of Israel and Gaza, we're okay, I think. It's this potential spread, and I think a lot of folks are worried about that. Will other groups get involved? Will Iran become more directly involved? I think the fact that the U.S. sent an aircraft carrier battle group to the Eastern Mediterranean is sending a clear signal to Iran, don't try anything. Whether they will listen is another issue, but we are sending up deterrent signals. And so hopefully we will not see this kind of ramifications here economically.
And also on the economics of it, just the market in general is sensitive to instability.
Yes.
The past couple of days, though, I believe the Dow has ended up, which was surprising.
Right.
But is there any concern about uncertainty in the broader sense as far as the economy in general?
Yes, I mean, there is. I mean, again, if this conflict spreads, what will be the impact on other countries in the region, and what might that do to their trade, to their ability to pay interest on loans, et cetera. I think to some extent, the greater instability, though, is at the other end of the Eurasian landmass, property developers collapsing in China. And so that could be the bigger issue, right? Is the Chinese economy and how not very well it's doing could be a bigger drag on global markets. So I would kind of look that way more than what's going on here in the Middle East at the moment. Again, unless it enlarges to a larger conflict. But yes, markets are going to be instability. I saw the Dow was down, I think, early yesterday, and then it came back up. But it's going to be driven more based on interest rates and things like that here, and kind of the global trade, global financial markets. It's going to be more sensitive to some other things than just what's happening here in Israel. Israel's not a main global trade powerhouse, so that's going to insulate us some. I'm not saying that their economy's bad, but it's not the same as if Japan or South Korea had an issue like this. Then, of course, we'd be extremely, because it's just those are larger economies than Israel.
Do you see the United States getting involved militarily more than we probably already are?
Well, we are. We're sending munitions, and there's already concern being, okay, Israel's going to ask for more in a few days probably, and we can't fulfill that, right? So it's an issue for the U.S. in terms of our defense production, because we're already supplying so much to Ukraine for their war with Russia. Now we're going to be supplying munitions to Israel. Can we keep up with that, or do we have to ramp up production? I think we have to ramp up production, but can we easily? And so we're involved in the conflict in that way. Should there be a broader conflict, which it's not looking like there will be, but it's still a concern, the U.S. may become more involved. Maybe just behind the scenes helping Israel more, but it's also possible that U.S. Special Forces could work with Israel on some of these things. But again, it all depends on what scenario would unfold. If Iran were to somehow start launching missiles at Israel, that opens a whole nother can of worms. And then you could perhaps see the U.S. becoming more directly involved in a conflict. But again, this is all speculation, and it doesn't look like at the moment it's going to head in that direction. But we're going to see instability in the Middle East. I mean, there's always instability, but I think we're going to see quite a bit moving forward. One of the things everyone has talked about is this notion of this two-state solution, where you'd have an Israeli state and Palestinian state. Gaza was going to be part of that Palestinian state. By the time this war is done, in a few weeks perhaps, I don't know what's going to be left in Gaza. Israel is doing a lot of damage to infrastructure there as punishment on Hamas for the war that they've launched on Israel. So what will be left in Gaza that could become part of the Palestinian state? I'm not sure. I don't know how many Israelis who had supported a two-state solution are still going to be willing to support a two-state solution moving forward. So I think there's going to be then some instability, and what will the Palestinians do? I mean, this is a long-standing problem. No easy solutions, and I think Hamas has just made it that much harder to try to solve the tensions between Israel and the Palestinians.